to receiver Ward. NFL Network reports in Washington is likely to part ways with quarterback Smith, 36 years of age. He's owed $26.2 million this upcoming season. If they release him before June the 1st, they would save.
Today, Derion Kendrick, of course, with his leaving the Clemson program. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Once again, thanks for checking us out. We'll start with that baseball series. South Carolina and Clemson over the weekend, they tangled. You know, going into it, you can look at it from this perspective, too, if you're a Clemson fan. You could say the Clemson Tigers didn't have exactly all of their players. No Kier Meredith, no Sam Hall. They did not have their catcher behind the plate, whose name is off the top of my tongue right now, but I can't really get into it. It's not coming to me. I'm trying to wake up, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's late in the day. They didn't have those guys. Still went toe-to-toe with South Carolina. And I tell you what, the South Carolina baseball team, they looked just outstanding. And you can look at it from this perspective, too, if you're a Gamecock fan. Both of those games over the weekend, South Carolina should have blown Clemson out of the water. Wait, what? Yes. If you look at those games, South Carolina should have blown them out of the water. And I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. The first game on Saturday, South Carolina went into that game and they Davis Sharp had a good day and they were doing some good stuff there as far as him on the mound. Struck out a ton of guys, but it comes back down to this. The Gamecocks out-hit Clemson and win the game 3-2 in 11 innings. But if you look at the box score on Saturday, South Carolina out-hit Clemson 15-7. Clemson committed more errors on Saturday than South Carolina did. Clemson had a lot of timely strikeouts and timely enough hits to keep themselves in the mix there in that game. But if you look at that game, Clemson had no business winning that game. When you get out hit by 8 hits, that says a good bit. Now, if we look at the Sunday matchup, same thing goes on the Sunday matchup here. South Carolina out-hit Clemson 13-9. Both teams committed 2 errors. So South Carolina in 2 games was plus 12 on the hit side. Not that that's something that you can look at and say, all right, this is the determining factor. What I know is that Gamecock bat hit a lot of Clemson baseball this weekend. And Clemson came into this, I think it's one of Monty Lee's youngest teams that he's had. There's a lot of things that people just didn't know about. The young man behind the plate, French, is a good player, and he's going to do some damage later on. But from that perspective, though, you got to look at it this way. South Carolina was just outstanding this weekend. Wes Clark, just for yesterday, 4 RBIs, 3 hits, a couple of homers yesterday. Didn't do very well, but he looks like Paul Bunyan striding up to the plate. And for Clemson fans, he kind of reminds me of Seth Beer. Why in the world would you pitch to Wes Clark ever? And I understand people are like, well, you can't just give him a walk. Wes Clark yesterday won the game, in my opinion, for the Gamecocks. 4 RBIs on the day and was dominant every time he came up there. I would point blank pitch around this guy all day, every day. He was named the National Player of the Week once again. So if you are a Clemson fan, you tip your hat and you move on with this, because South Carolina was just the much better team, in my opinion, over the weekend, even though both games were close. You can make an argument as a Clemson fan that, hey, Clemson should have had the opportunity to win on Saturday. The umpires for both sides, the umpires, by the way, according to both sides, were not very good. And I think the best analogy came from, I was listening to the radio side of it. On the radio side of it, South Carolina, I can't remember who they had on the call, but they were basically talking about nobody knows where the strike zone is. Edwin asked how many walks. Let me see here. Total walks on the day. Clemson had 2 on Sunday. The Gamecocks had 6 on Sunday. So that's a good implementation too there. You're right about that. So the Gamecocks walked 6 batters. Clemson walked 2. In the matchup that's a good point, Edwin. Edwin should be the executive producer of the show, because I should have looked that up beforehand. I did look up the other aspect with the hits, because that was something that was really, really interesting to me. As far as walks, Clemson walked 2 on Saturday. The Gamecocks walked 3. So the Gamecocks drew more walks, submitted more walks over the weekend. Maybe that's what kept it as close as it was. Jerome says Ray Tanner should referee all the money he keeps stealing. Not a lot of love there for Ray Tanner and the Gamecocks. As far as the Gamecock basketball team, ladies and gentlemen, they pick up a win. Yes, they did. They beat Georgia. If South Carolina played Georgia every weekend or every game, they would be national champions. They won 10 straight over the Georgia Bulldogs. They went into Stegman Coliseum and beat Georgia by like 19 points. Put up 90 points. Wait, what? Frank Martin's team's putting up 90 points in conference play? What in the world is going on? That's kind of what I was thinking too. But hey, big win there, I guess, for them. They got to play Arkansas this week, and see them putting 90 up on Arkansas. But hey, we were talking about would they win another game? Yeah, that didn't happen. All right, if you want to respond to the baseball series, we'll be happy to get into that with you. I also want to talk a little bit about Eric Gilbert. And the young man apparently went to LSU, decided, hey, I don't want to play at LSU anymore. I'm going to transfer to Florida. From what I gather, he didn't even enroll. Wasn't even on campus. Now he's transferring and going somewhere else and basically putting out there, no one will know until I get there and I enroll. What a misguided young fellow that is. Shout out to the folks watching on Facebook and YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Brandon, Edwin, Jerome, ST, Shannon. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much. But yeah, I don't know what the deal is with this guy. Hey, we're just going to go and We're going to go out and we're just going to figure out where we're going to play. I have no clue what's going to happen with that young man or where he's going to end up. I can tell you that one of his former teammates now plays for the Tennessee Volunteers. And with that, he tweeted out, hey, come play for the Tennessee Volunteers. I don't know. Breaking news, the Chicago Bears have hired Tom Herman. I don't know what Tom Herman's going to do for the Chicago Bears, but apparently now he's going to coach up there with the Bears. Let me see if I can find something really quick on that before we get into Derion Kendrick doing his thing and leaving the program. JW says this his grades will probably go to JUCO. Yeah, that might happen. Let's see if there's some news here. I just got it. There we go. This is from 247 Sports. They've hired Tom Herman as an offensive analyst and to handle, quote, special projects. The organization announced the hiring on the Bears Twitter page this afternoon. Herman was 32-18 with the Longhorns the past 4 seasons, 4-0 mark in bowl games. 2018, he led Texas to a 10-4 record, capped by a 28-21 win over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Last year, the Longhorns finished 7-3 and beat Colorado 55-23 in the Alamo Bowl. You know, looking at Tom Herman's career at Texas, 14 games over 500, he wins all the bowl games. Last season, 7-3. I don't know what they want down in Texas. Steve Sarkisian's down there, and you know what? Tom Herman put together good recruiting classes. So watch Sarkisian go down there and wipe up and do great stuff. Who knows? As long as he can deal with the head-to-head things of being a head coach, he may be just all right. Maybe. Let's talk about Derion Kendrick for a minute before we head to a break here this afternoon. Derion Kendrick, of course, it was announced yesterday that he left the program. Be sure to follow my blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. You would have gotten that information quickly, as I put that up yesterday morning before I even made breakfast. I was up there. My daughters are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I've got to put this up. Well, we want breakfast. Well, hold on a minute. Go and find my blog pages at foxsportsradio1400.com. But Derion Kendrick, this is a guy that, you know, Clemson fans can say, hey, you know what, next man up. And I guess that's what you have to say. But let's just be honest. Off the field, he was not the best. You can make the argument that he had kind of maybe Warner's welcome out with a lot of the coaches, etc. On the field, the guy was a first-team All-ACC selection last year by the coaches, by Pro Football Focus, by everyone. And the reality was he didn't really see the field much. He was projected to be a late first-round pick in the NFL draft. Now, for some reason, and I don't know what it is, his mom put out something saying, hey, I want him to finish his degree. And I'm all about guys going to finish their degree. But if you're Derion Kendrick and you've had issues in the past from what we've been told about grades and everything else, and you're projected to be a first-round pick in the draft, go. You're not going to be motivated to be in school anyway. What does Clemson lose? Some people seem to forget this. Clemson could have used him as a wide receiver last year. He's played on both sides of the ball. All right. But he's a heck of a talent as a defensive back. And it makes you wonder, what would happen if they would have put him on the other side of the ball and let him catch passes last year? That could have been interesting too. It's sad, though, that he didn't leave the program. And this is with any program. When a young man goes there, the warm, soft side of me wants every player to go there, every student athlete to go there, play well, not get injured, and get your degree, and then move on. Guys like Justin Foster, who last week, was announced, hey, he's not coming back for Clemson. He left Clemson. He went to Clemson with no degree, left basically not being injured. He's able to, play, and he's got his degree, and he's heading off into the business world. That's a successful college athlete's career. So with that, it makes you wonder, where is he going to end up? Some folks are talking about maybe going to the land of a junior college. What if, ladies and gentlemen, Darion Kendrick could take the route of he went to South Point. You think there's not a relationship there with the South Carolina football program? I think Shane Beamer doesn't have that relationship with those coaches and everything up there. Wouldn't it be interesting if he went to South Carolina? I don't know if the grades will work out or not. I'm just throwing that out there. If he wants to play, why not go to an SEC school right down the road where you're going to start week 1 and probably be the best player on the defense? Remember, he's a projected first-round NFL draft pick. You're telling me he can't help that South Carolina team? I think he could. I really think he could. Now, granted, I don't know which way he's spinning, because if I'm told I'm a first-round draft pick, I wasn't bothering to try to come back for my senior year. I'll pick up my degree later on, and you can do that. Your response to that at 803-978-1832. Edwin says, going back to the Gilbert thing, something that I think I said the other day to a friend of mine, wouldn't surprise me at all to see Gilbert go to Jackson State to play with Deion Sanders. Yeah, good stuff there. Hold on, let's head out to the phones. Welcome to the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I was hearing what you had to say about the cornerback from Clemson. I don't see him going to South Carolina because they don't have any scholarships left.
They have
a lot of these schools are full.
They have one left. South Carolina does.
They have one left.
One left. Yes, sir. I'm not saying that he's going to get it. I'm just saying they have one left, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But hey, with the relationship that they have, I mean, would anybody be shocked right now as far as the coaches and all that? Not me, man. Especially with kids moving around so much.
Yeah, but if you're bringing in a kid that's got problems, and you're a first-year coach, you really want to deal with that?
Well, maybe Shane Beamer's the whisperer. Maybe he can get to Darion Kendrick and say, you know what? I want you to be right for 1 year. I want you to listen to me, and we're going to go to class and do what we're supposed to do, and we're going to put the cherry on your career, and people can see you can play in the ACC, the SEC. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Darion Kendrick got beat to death against Ohio State last year in that bowl game.
He did, but you can't take one game from that.
AJ
Terrell got beat senseless by LSU. He's going to be an all rookie player.
Yeah, but the LSU had a little bit more wide receivers than Ohio State did.
That's a fair point, sir. That's a very fair point.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. More calls on that in just a moment here on the Rundown. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Brandon says Beamer wouldn't take him. We have zero tolerance for that. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to take a projected first round draft pick. Get out of here, man. 803-978-1832. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing good. Couple comments.
Sure.
You just talking about the next man up. And I hate to say this. Next man up as far as cornerback, safeties, defensive back, whatever word you want to use for Clemson, they're hurting. If you look at the last two games, those guys have got roasted or toasted or whatever word you want to use.
You're exactly right.
So if they losing Kendrick, they really going to be in a world of trouble. And I was just thinking about it the other day. Now, very seldom you're going to get somebody like a Chase or Williams, the other wide receivers from Alabama. Now, Clemson had them over the years.
Right.
But if you don't have any defensive backs to cover somebody like Chase and those other guys, you're going to be in trouble. And that's what has happened to Clemson over the last several years. They got a lot of 4 stars, 3 stars, but those guys are slow. Or those guys can't learn the defense, so that's why Clemson is having to play the same fellas they've having to play over the last several years. So that's a big weakness for Clemson if they don't address that defensive backfield. I hang up and listen. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. He's right about that. Clemson defensive backs have been roasted the past couple of seasons. The caller before that mentioned LSU. Jamar Chase is still laughing at AJ Terrell. And I know that sounds vulgar and silly, but you watch that game. Yeah, he lit AJ Terrell up like a Christmas tree. Now, AJ Terrell may have been trying to do too much. I don't know. Maybe the scheme wasn't exactly the best thing for him. You can make that argument. But the reality is that one-on-one, Jamar Chase lit him up. Derion Kendrick got lit up in the Ohio State game. I mean, that just happens. A couple of notes from folks online. USC Insider says, I'll take him, more experience in the Gamecock backfield. Brandon says, we got experience. RJ Roderick is a senior third-year starter at safety. I'm just saying, if Derion Kendrick wants to go to South Carolina, I believe they've got one scholarship left. You know, a lot of the verbiage from people that are close to the program, they'll tell you Kendrick's not a bad guy. He just apparently ran out of steps there with the Clemson football team. But to say, hey, a projected first round pick, we're going to tell him no. No, I'm not buying all that. The Gamecocks right now, they need as many projected first round picks as they can possibly get. We'll take your calls on that in a moment. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Roderick, you're telling me that you'd rather go with Roderick. Okay. And Roderick's not a corner. Roderick is a safety. So I'm just saying, if you could have Kendrick, I mean, that's kind of the way to go. And Kendrick could play wide receiver for you too. You forget that too. The Gamecocks need some wide receivers, for goodness sake. Kendrick can play wide receiver too. And you got to stop thinking that you can't, we don't want that guy with our program. Get out of here with that nonsense, man. You like to think if you're a coach, you can motivate anyone. You can motivate anybody to be like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and you're going to do this and that, and we're all going to get along. Not the best players were, guys that were just completely awesome all the time. You didn't have any of that. I mean, the first person I think of is Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was sleeping in meetings and everything else. Bill Parcells, old school at his finest, was doing the, you cater to those players. I think that would be an interesting mix there. We shall see how that goes. I am not sure. I wonder where Alex is hilarious. I owe you a beer, Alex. Whenever you can get a kitchen pass, let me know. I'll buy you some beer. Oh, goodness. You think he's going to go to SC State? That's a good point, Greg. Why not? Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Around the world on the iHeartRadio app, lots of folks talking about what I was saying online about what if Derion Kendrick decided to go to South Carolina. People are saying maybe his grades aren't there. He might go to SC State. Let's see here. Who else they got? He'll probably go to an SEC school. Yeah, I mean, or there's the other end of it too. He may just sit out and be picked up in the supplemental draft. That might happen too. Talk about a pick that could be huge there for some team. Yeah, you give up, you play ball a little bit, and maybe you pick him up in the 5th round, give up your 5th round pick for a 1st round guy. That's the kind of thing that can happen. Why not? By the way, one quick note here about J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt is considered one of the, everybody loves J.J. Watt, and I do too. All right. But Watt is towards the end of his career. And Watt asked to be released from the Texans. The Texans let him go. And Watt is currently rated by Pro Football Focus as the 15th best defensive lineman or defensive end in the NFL. So he's still a really good player. I don't know if he's quite the game changer that he was before when people were talking about him being the MVP. But I was kind of disappointed in Watt. Watt signed a 2-year, $31 million deal with the $23 million guaranteed. Now, the guy's made more money than, he made a ton of money when he was with Houston. It seems like this deal, though, was not centered around winning a championship. It was more centered around how much money could I get playing. And normally we don't really have that for J.J. Watt. We normally think that he's the most giving guy, sleeping at Energy Stadium, helping out people, and he'll probably continue to still do that. But signing this deal, it was interesting. Yes, I know he's got to get paid, but if he really was trying to win a championship, why not go and head down to Tampa? You could sign a veteran's minimum there. You're going to make tons of endorsements anyway, and you can get that ring. Why not go to Green Bay, where they could give you some money too? Not quite the $23 million you're going to get from the Cardinals. But let's be honest. Does anybody see the Cardinals going to the Super Bowl this year? No. Is J.J. Watt going to lead them to the Super Bowl? No. He needs to understand his role. His role now is to be a guy that can lead some younger players, or he can lead younger players on one team, or he can go with one team and be a guy that is sort of like Jason Pierre-Paul, Ndamukong Suh was for the Bucs this year. You know what those guys got? They got championship rings. Folks online saying he wanted to be with D-Hop, with Hopkins. Yeah, maybe so. And everybody and their brothers making the comment, well, maybe the Cardinals are going to trade Kyler Murray to Houston, and then they'll reunite Deshaun Watkins with DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt all down in Arizona. Yeah, I'm not buying that at all. Being interesting. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed in J.J. Watt. And by the way, I've got something interesting I wanted to put out there with the Deshaun Watson thing. There's all the talk about, hey, he's going to go somewhere else. We need to stop for a minute with that. And what I mean with that is that I think we've kind of talked about this before, but the reality is Houston doesn't have to do anything. They could sit there and point blank tell Deshaun Watson, yeah, we're not going to trade you. Show up to camp or we're going to fine you at with what your contract says. And Deshaun Watson can tell them point blank, yeah, I'm still not coming. But we all think that Houston's going to bend. And in the end, maybe they should, just because the market is so hot for Deshaun Watson right now. With what they could get for him, it can monumentally change their franchise forever. Okay? So there's that. We got to think about that too. But they don't have to do anything. He signed a contract in September with them. And he's locked up for the next 5 years. So if they don't want to do anything with him, they don't have to. They can point blank say, here's the contract, and then go from there. Now, on the other hand, if Deshaun Watson decides to sit, and he most likely will do that according to sources, then they're going to start rebuilding in Houston anyway. So it's kind of the rock and a hard place type thing. But if I'm an owner of an NFL team, and I bank all of my existence as far as my franchise goes on my quarterback, who has shown that, hey, he can be the franchise quarterback at 25 years old, of course, leading the league in passing this year. I'm going to get with my other owners, and they're going to tell me basically, I'm sure, hey, maybe you shouldn't bend to him because that's going to set a precedent. Out to the phones we go, 803-978-1832. And welcome into the rundown. I don't know who that is. Call us back, 803-978-1832. So there's definitely that aspect to think about when it comes to that. The NIT, by the way, we just found out where that's going to be held. That should be interesting too. I'll tell you a little bit later on where Clemson is now projected as far as where they're going to be for their seating. Brandon asks, Do you think the 2 wide receivers that South Carolina picked up in the transfer portal will start for the Gamecocks this year? I don't know enough about Amirian Brown. EJ Jenkins, though, is the young man. He's like 6'8", 235 pounds. I mean, if he has any kind of speed at all, I would put him on the field just to have him out there as a big, huge body that can at least block. Coach Stepp has a reputation of, look what he did at Arkansas. He can coach those wide receivers up. As far as the physical specimen, EJ Jenkins is a huge, huge wide receiver. When you don't have very many guys that are that tall. It'd be great if he could put on, 10 pounds over the summer or whatever, 10, 15 pounds. If he's 6'8", 250. I mean, that's maybe a little bit too heavy for a receiver, but maybe they could use him in some tight end formation type stuff and have it set up where he basically does what Gronkowski used to do in the NFL, or still does. Gronkowski used to literally run a simple flag route or a simple post route and basically post his guy up like he was a center and just hold his hands out, and Tom Brady threw it to a spot. I mean, that would make the most sense. But if I were to guess, the guy that I think should get the most playing time would be EJ Jenkins. That's just my opinion. Simply because of his size. And I have to do some more research on Brown, but Brandon, you follow me on Twitter, man. Send me a message on that and I'll tell you, I'll send you a write-up on that, but that's a very good question. I'm going to have on Tim Frisbee, the former Gamecock wide receiver, here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll ask him about that as we get set up for the spring football for South Carolina. Clemson, by the way, still in the mix up there. They're doing their spring practice right now. We should have some comments tomorrow from Dabo Swinney about what exactly happened with Darion Kendrick. So we'll get into that. That's going to be interesting too. The timeline for that is what I really want to know. What exactly happened there? All right, so we'll take your calls at 803-978-1832. Quick break, and we come back. We'll have more for you on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, I'm not being disrespectful to Brown. In my opinion, I just think Jenkins has just as big as he is. I mean, you can't manufacture that kind of size. It's not really fair to mock Muschamp when he's not here now that he's out at Georgia, but he didn't really leave much. You're absolutely right about that, Brandon. Just left the cupboard bare. You're right. You are right about that. I don't know well enough to know about if he's a Shi Smith type. That's some interesting stuff there, though. Alex may be right. You never know with all that, man. Never know.
It's time to show your online assistant where you go for a good time. Okay, Google, play Fox Sports Radio 1400 on iHeartRadio.
More breaking news today here. On the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. The NIT has announced they will play in a 16-team field in Dallas-Fort Worth. Typically, this is the 32-team tournament. Early rounds, they play at home sites. COVID has completely screwed everything up with basketball. I mean, it's a mess, to say the least. The NIT tournament, for me, it's going to the NIT. You're thinking about, all right, look, we haven't quite had the season we need to have, but we're going to get a second chance. And the idea is to get to go to the Garden and play. Now it's like, hey, we've had a crummy season, not quite where we need to be to get into the tournament. Now we're going to go to Dallas. What a mess. What an absolute mess. I tell you what, man, I've told the story about my son being autistic and I have to teach him stuff in the morning because he's still in virtual schooling. His new favorite phrase is, I'm sick of COVID. And he's right. I'm about there too. My thing is, why have the NIT if you are really that worried about it as far as the COVID and everything else? I mean, let's be honest. Do you think the players are going to really get jacked up to play in the NIT? It's kind of a tough sell now, to be honest with you. Now, hey, let's go to this Dallas bubble where we're going to get our nose swabbed every day and all of that. It's not what you want, man. Kind of sad news on that front. By the way, quick note about the Clemson basketball team here. They are projected on, I think, the CBS site as possibly being a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. With that, ladies and gentlemen, if Clemson is the 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, hell has officially frozen over. I mean, seriously. Let's be honest, the Clemson basketball team, not quite the team that everyone talks about in the grand scheme of, hey, college basketball, and, it's not the first team that you think about. I'm not knocking the Clemson program in general. I'm just saying you've got half the Clemson fan base in the world of Clemson Twitter that wants Brad Brownell fired. And there's talk that they could be the 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now, you can look at it from two different perspectives. Either A, that half of the fan base is completely insane, or this is a fluke. You can look at one or the other. I lean to more along the lines of, yeah, this isn't exactly the best, I guess it's not the best way to look at it, but you don't have the traditional blue bloods that are doing their thing right now. I mean, most people that are putting together their brackets are looking at Gonzaga and maybe Baylor as your top 2 teams right now. After that, it's kind of a downward slope. It's kind of interesting, though, because Clemson could be a number 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, according to CBS Sports. Most people have them as about a 6 seed. Someone was online the other day talking about if you get a 5 seed, that's like the most disrespectful thing ever because they automatically match you up with a 12 seed, which is an absolutely tough team. And you know the old adage, there's always a 12 that beats a 5. You'll hear that in the coming weeks as we get set up for the championships in a couple weeks. We're like, what are we?
Call us at 803-9-RETIRE.
I'm sorry about that, guys. Can you guys hear me over there now? Is that good? Is that better? Let me know. Thumbs up. Good. Not sure what happened with my sound feed over here. I got to figure that out. My engineers are coming to look at it. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's whacked out. There's something in our wiring here that they're working on, and I don't know what the deal is with it. So but I'm working on it. I promise. We'll get you right here eventually. What a mess. I appreciate you guys liking the show over here, man. That means a lot. Talking with you guys a little bit every day. Kind of breaks up my day here at Fox Sports and the other stuff I do for iHeartRadio. In addition to this show, I do my blog page, and then I've got I do production and web work and all kind of stuff, man. I do all kind of crazy stuff. But this is my favorite part of the day. Just come in here and chat with you guys, talk a little sports. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeartRadio app. We were talking about the Clemson basketball team before we went into break, and I was looking at Clemson possibly being a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, and it's not really that far-fetched. Not really that far-fetched. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting, though, that Clemson is projected to go that high. In the latest bracket watch, Clemson is projected to be a 4 seed and taking on the SoCon champ UNC Greensboro. On average, the top bracketologists have Clemson as a 6 seed in most spots there. Of course, they win over Miami over the weekend. Their KenPom rankings at 38, their net rankings now at 34. They play against Syracuse on Wednesday night, wrap up the season on this weekend with Pittsburgh. So we'll see how that works out for Clemson. But, you know, it's interesting. There's 2 different sides to this when it comes to it as far as Brad Brownell goes. There's a lot of people that are looking at it from the perspective of he's went to 2 NCAA tournaments, the first year with Oliver Purnell's players. The second year that he went was like the culmination of all of these great teams together, or all of these great players together that finally melded up into one spot. Elijah Jenkins, or, you know, what was it? Elijah, I want to say I'm saying Jenkins, but it was the big man in the middle that played for Texas A&M, whose name escapes my head. They had some really good players. All of it came together. They took that to a Sweet 16 run, but then it's flat after that. But you also have the thing of Clemson's won more games in history as far as with Brad Brownell. Just notched his 200 win with Clemson. And people are loving it, man, on that front. But there's still a section of folks that are like, yeah, maybe he's not the guy. Brandon says, do you think South Carolina will have a good D-line this year? Everyone is returning. Ingangbare, who was first-team All-SEC, Sterling, Pickens, Birch, Sandage, and Ellis. You know, they had a lot of talent there. Pickens is a guy that was, you know, Alabama was upset when they didn't get him. Clemson was right there in the mix to get him too. So as far as that goes, Birch is another player that had offers to go and do big things. We were talking about this during the break with the folks online. You can follow online at the Fox Sports Radio Facebook page. The big thing with that was they didn't have a lot of wide receivers that were left. Okay. There are two areas that, in my opinion, Will Muschamp left pretty good. You can make an argument with running back. You got the SEC's leading rusher returning. That's a Will Muschamp guy. And then you've got the young man that played at the Catholic high school who injured his knee last season. And he's a guy, I mean, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch right there. And then you look at the rest of these guys, Enimbare, Sterling, Pickens, Birch, Sandage. Yeah, it seems like on the defensive line, you're pretty good. Maybe a different set of coaching. Sometimes you have this whole thing where if you hear the same message over and over and over again, sometimes it just doesn't click in. You like, God bless my wife. She tells me things and I forget things. And if she nags me, I'm not going to be at it either. But if you have the same voice at you over and over and over again, sometimes you may tune that out. Maybe that fresh set of voices, fresh new way of coaching, maybe the different scheme from the new defensive coordinator, maybe it'll implement some of these guys where they can use that raw talent that they had coming out of high school. And in Barre, who's shown it on the college level, maybe they can mold all that together and put a decent defensive lineup for South Carolina, and then they can build the secondary from there. Just saying. If you're looking for the Johnny Q positive side of it. And by the way, if I'm South Carolina this season, I don't know how good the offensive line is going to be, but I would go into it thinking we're going to run the ball a lot because I'm not too sure about the wide receiving core. Not too sure about the quarterback either. It seemed like the majority of the time last season, he was kind of running for his life. I'm more confident when Kevin Harris has the ball and just let him run. Run the other guy a little bit. I mean, if I'm a Gamecock fan, that's what I want. We're going to control the clock and hopefully get some stops with our defense. Let that defensive line be nasty this year and put them in a position and tell them, look, our season hinges on whether or not you can be a nasty defensive line. That's kind of what you want from them. Because you can build a team from that. And if teams know, let's just say that you get that defensive line to a point where they're going to stop the run and you're not able to really run the ball on them, that's going to be a big difference. We're going to run the ball and we're going to stop people from running the ball. That should be what Coach Shane Beamer wants to do this year. If he does that, then it could be interesting for South Carolina. And what I say by interesting is we can talk about them going from, say, a 5-win team to maybe a 7-win team and competitive in every game. Not going into every game thinking, man, we're going to get tanked. Not having games like the Kentucky game last year where nobody cared. Okay? Stop the run the ball. You're going to win a lot of games. Now, your secondary, it's a work in progress. I mean, there really isn't anyone in the secondary that really lights you on fire. So we'll see how that works out for the Gamecocks. Jimmy says they need help at linebacker for sure. Yeah. Coach Eric Wilson, who is now the offensive coordinator at the Hammond School, he has told me, even on the show, South Carolina hasn't really had a really good SEC type linebacker. Guys that are average, but as far as being an elite linebacker at South Carolina, you just hadn't really had it in a while. And that's fair. I mean, he's drawn up more X's and O's than I'll ever dream of. So we'll go with Coach Wilson on that. But, yeah, that defensive line, though, I think is the big key point for South Carolina this year. And we're going to talk about that as we roll along into the upcoming season. It's more fun for me to, as far as doing this show and covering both South Carolina and Clemson on the show. It's more interesting to me with South Carolina this year because you don't know what you're going to get. You kind of knew what you were going to get with Will Muschamp, and that was failure. I mean, that's kind of the vibe that you had. Everyone came in and joined me on the show. They kind of felt the same way. This year, you don't know what you're going to get. You know that Shane Beamer's down there, and it seems like he's setting the world on fire. Now, obviously, you got to have some of those Jimmies and Joes to get out there and do something for you. But as far as perception about South Carolina, I mean, it's not like it's just a dull hope this year. It's not optimism yet that, hey, they're going to compete to win the SEC East. I'm not saying that. But there's optimism that they can be respectable and not be looked upon as a team that's just a little bit better than Vanderbilt. Seriously. That's kind of how it felt last season. Calls on that this afternoon if you wanted 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Gamecocks have I got to look at their schedule. I know that Clemson, of course, they will, as far as basketball goes, they've got Syracuse on Wednesday. That's like a 4:00 tip-off. That's kind of crazy, right? So there's that. And then they play on Saturday against Pittsburgh. South Carolina, their schedule, as far as basketball goes, they've got one game left, and that is against – oh, no, they've got 2 games left. I'm sorry. They've got Arkansas, and then they go on the road to Kentucky. So they play Arkansas on Tuesday, and then they play on the road at Kentucky this weekend. That is a noon tip on ESPN. Man, Kentucky's been terrible on the hoops front. We talked about the Blue Bloods not really doing much this year. Yeah, there's that. South Carolina baseball, by the way, they moved up a couple of spots in the latest polls. They're like number 14 in the country right now. So that's pretty good for that program there. They're now 6-0 on the year. They will play at Winthrop tomorrow night at Winthrop. First pitch is at 6:00. So there's that. As they look to keep their streak alive as far as being undefeated. So we'll see how that works out for South Carolina. Clemson, on the other hand, as far as baseball goes, they will play their next matchup, I think, is against Charleston Southern, if I'm correct. I think that's what I saw earlier today. No, it's East Tennessee State. My bad. They play East Tennessee State tomorrow. That game, we'll get you the time on that. It's at 4:00. And then they start conference play this weekend as they welcome in Notre Dame. So there's that for the Clemson baseball team. All right, in the coming week here, we're going to have on some folks to talk a little baseball with us. Braves getting their season underway. We're looking forward to that. They lost yesterday to the Tampa Bay Rays. And, yep, Spring Grapefruit League baseball. That's going to be like my retirement thing is I want to take like when I retire, I say retire. But I want to take like a week and just go cover the Grapefruit League. Sit down there, run box scores or whatever. Do live streams after the game. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Anyway, be sure to check us out the next couple of days. We'll talk about the Braves a little bit. We'll also talk about some college baseball and basketball as we get set for the women's tournaments of this week. Clemson's the 11th seed. Clemson's the 11th seed in the ACC tournament. South Carolina is they did not win the SEC regular season title. They finished second after they dropped a game yesterday to Texas A&M. So how will the Gamecocks do in the SEC tournament? We shall certainly see. All right, don't forget, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me,
Be
Swan.
sure to follow him at Clemson Sports, also ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Or if you're listening here in Columbia or 100.1 The Fan in Florence, 920 AM in Manning, check out the vast Clemson Sports Talk radio network. Lawton also is the ambassador of Show Tunes. I've told you that before. Tweeted him, tell him what you want him to sing, and he will sing it. There you go with that. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast for the show will be up at 5:00. I am truly blessed that I get to come and talk sports talk radio with you guys every day. We'll be back at it tomorrow here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Edwin, you rock, brother. I'm going to send you a message about something here in a little bit, Edwin. We'll talk. And Brandon, you're right with everything that you wrote there. There you go with that. Like you guys watching on YouTube, like the YouTube video. Give us a little check mark up there. We appreciate that. And tell people you listen. That's kind of cool too. That way we have more people that can actually, be voices here. And with the world coming back, man, we're going to be doing a lot more cool stuff. I know we're going to ACC kickoff, so we'll have coaches live on the stream, which hasn't happened. We'll be streaming live video there and doing all kind of stuff. So you guys be sure to join us for that, and we appreciate y'all over there watching online. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.